This is lesson 8.3, independent practice. This is page 222. And we're going to pick up on numbers 25 through 29. And this video is intended to go through some of these tricky problems. It is best if you try these problems on your own and then watch this video when you are ready to check your answer. So number 25 reads, Consumer Math. The sales tax in the town where Amanda lives is 7%. Amanda paid $35 in sales tax on a new stereo. What was the price of the stereo? So whenever I see a percent and a whole number, I realize I'm looking for another whole number. And so what I do is I immediately set up my proportion where I set up the percent, 7%. That's the same as 700ths. I'm going to write that's equal to, now I have to decide where $35 go. Is $35 the part or is $35 the whole? Well, it says that she paid $35 in sales tax, and it says we don't know the price of the stereo. That means we know the part that she's paid the tax. What we don't know is the whole price of the stereo. It's really important that you understand the part and the whole relationship here. Now this is actually pretty simple math. To get from 7 to 35, you just multiply by 5. So if you multiply the top term in a proportion by 5, you have to multiply the bottom term by the proportion by 5. 100 times 5 is $500. And then I simply just reread the question and ask myself, is that reasonable? Would it be reasonable to spend $500 on a stereo system? I think the answer is yes. And by the way, is $35 a lot of money to pay in taxes? The answer is yes, it is. But the only way you could pay $35 in taxes is if you had an expensive item. So the answer to number 25 is $500. Alright, so I'm sorry about this first mistake. I just was informed that this is page 221. The next page we're going to get to is 222, but I'm sorry about that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to number 26. Number 26 reads, Financial Literacy. Ashton is saving money to buy a new bike. I know later it says scooter, so we're just going to ignore that misprint. We're not too worried about it. He needs $120, but it has only saved 60% so far. So just like before, I know what 60% means. That means 60 hundredths. And I've got $120. Where does that go? Is that my part or my whole? Now some kids are going to want to be tempted to put 120 as my part because 60 goes into 120 twice. But the problem here is that this 160 is the whole, and there's a reason why. The whole would be how much money Ashton needs to buy the item, and the part is how much money he's saved so far. And so it says he needs $120 to buy this item. So that's the whole, and the part is how much he saved. We don't know that. So here's what we're going to do. Since 100 can't be multiplied by a whole number to get 120, what I'm going to do is simplify the 60 and the 100. I'm going to divide by 10, and so if I divide 60 by 10, it actually becomes 6, and if I divide 100 by 10, it actually becomes 10. In other words, 60 hundredths is equivalent to 6 tenths. Now why is that so much better? Well, now my bottom terms, 10, simply can be multiplied by 12 to get to 120. If I multiply the second term by 12, I have to multiply the first terms by 12. And so what do you get there? 6 times 12 is 72. Now this is a great answer, but if we read carefully, we'll realize that's not what was asked. So let's reread it. Ashton is saving money to buy a new bike. He needs $120, but has only saved 60% so far. By the way, 60% is $72. How much has he saved? He has saved $72. But the question then goes on to say, how much more money does Ashton need to buy the bike? So you can't put 72 because that's not how much more he needs. How are we going to figure this out? Well, we're going to take the total price of the item, 120, and we're going to subtract how much he has saved so far, and the difference is how much he still needs. So I'm going to borrow properly. I'm going to borrow from this 2, making it 10. 10 minus 8, or 10 minus 2 is 8, and 11 minus 7 is 4. The answer is $48. Ashton still needs $48. Number 27. This is actually probably the hardest problem here. Just because a lot of kids have been paying attention to this is and of rule about how to set this up. Monica paid a sales tax of $1.50 when she bought a new bike helmet. If the sales tax rate was 5%, once again, 5% means 5 hundredths. And where do we put this $1.50? Well, $1.50 is the sales tax that she paid, and the question says, how much did the store charge for the helmet before tax? So let's think about this. Would the whole be the price of the helmet, or would the whole be the tax? Would the tax be the part, or would the tax be the whole? I think the tax would be the part, which makes it $1.50 as my numerator, and the whole is the price of the helmet. Now, what do we do here? The way I think we should probably do this would be to simplify the 5 and 100. If we simplify 5 100ths by 5, you would get 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. And now I'm going to bring down the rest of my proportion here, and I'm going to set $1.50 over I don't know. And while these aren't whole numbers, this is still pretty reasonable math to figure out. How would you get from 1 to 1.5 or 1.50? Well, that's the thing about 1. 1 times anything is that number. So I'm going to multiply by 1.50. Now I'm just going to multiply 20 by 1.50. It's the same thing as multiplying by 1.5. So if I multiply 20 by 1.5, and what I'm going to do is just take that 0 off because it's not important. And this is kind of like doing 2 times 15. 2 times 15 is 30. Annex this 0 and then move the decimal over once. The answer is $30. Now $30 should make a little bit of sense because that's a reasonable price for a helmet, and especially since the tax rate, $1.50, since that was pretty small, that should make sense that it's a pretty small amount for the item. Okay, moving on. All right, so we have these, we have a circle graph here, and it talks about how Becky spends her day. It says use the circle graph to determine how many hours per day Becky spends on each activity, and then it says all the different types of activities: school, eating, sleep, homework, and free time. The first thing you need to recognize is that a day is 24 hours. So for school, it says 25%. Check this out right here. 25. Oops. Right here it says 25%. So what that means is that you need to find 25% of 24 hours. And the way I think would be best to solve this is to recognize 25% as a benchmark. A benchmark of 25% is a fourth. So you simply need to find a fourth of 24. And hopefully you know by now that a fourth of 24 is the same thing as dividing 24 by 4. A fourth of 24 is 6. So how much time does she spend in school? 6 hours. That should seem reasonable because most of you spend about 6 hours in school. Eating, she spent 10% of her day eating. So I'm going to rewrite this over here as find 10%, and it's still of 24 because that's how long a day is. And I hope you remember how to find 10% of any number. 10% of any number is a tenth, and a tenth of 24 hours is 2.4. It's simply, especially on a double-digit number, it's simply taking the same digits and inserting a decimal. It's taking the decimal and moving it 1 to the left, so it's 2.4. She spent 2.4 hours eating. She also spent 10% of her day doing homework, so that also is going to be 2.4. All right, so we need to figure out now sleep and free time. And I think I'll do free time first because that's 15%. So let's go ahead and figure out what we can do to figure out 15%. There's a couple of different ways we could do this. I would like to try it mentally. And here's how I'm going to do it. Instead of finding 15%, I'm going to find 5%. And because the reason why I'm going to do that is because it should be pretty simple. I know that 5% is exactly half of 10%. So 5% then of 24 needs to be exactly half of 2.4. And half of 2.4 is 1.2. Now I didn't actually answer any questions yet, but I should be able to notice, what if I combined 10% and 5%? What would I get? I'd get 15%. And if I combine those, I have to combine the hours over here. And so I'm going to add up 2.4 and 1.2. And so I'm going to get 15% of 24 is 3.6. So that was the answer to free time. And then sleep's going to be my largest answer. And part of the reason it's going to be my largest answer is it's my largest piece of pie over here. There's different ways to do this. You could use the 10% method. Maybe I'll use this as an opportunity to review with you just how to multiply. Whenever you're stuck on how to do these, if you're asked to find something like 40% of 24, one way to do that is to simply change the 40% into a decimal. 40% is the same as 40 hundredths or 4 tenths, and of means times. So if you do 0.4 times 24, you can get the right answer. And if you use a multiplication chart, you'll realize that 24 times 4 is 96. And then you need to move your decimal over one place to the left. The answer is 9.6. That should seem reasonable. If you got a crazy big answer or a crazy small answer, you need to use your common sense to recognize that that doesn't seem reasonable. All right, we have one more question. It's going to be on our next page. It's going to be on page 222. We're going to check out question number 29 here. It says Mark ordered a rug. He gave a deposit of 30% of the cost and will pay the rest when the rug is delivered. If the deposit was $75, how much more does Mark owe? And explain how I found your answer. I think what I'll do here is set up a proportion, because this seems like the same thing we've been working on. And 30% is the same as 30 hundredths. So I can put that on the left. And where does the 75 go? Is that going to be my first term or my second term? Well, it says he put down a deposit. That means he paid a little bit. And if it means that he paid a little bit, that means we don't know the total. And the total would always be the second term. So I'm going to put the word total here because you don't know it. And I'm going to put 75 right here. And now I'm going to think about this for a minute. I'm going to say, how many times does 30 go into 75? It doesn't go in evenly, so what can I do? What I've tried to teach you a bunch of times is that whenever you get in this position, you try to simplify. Watch how easy it is to simplify 31 hundredths. If I divide each of those by 10, I would get 3 and 10. I just like to cross those zeros off. Now I've got numbers that are compatible. I can very easily multiply 3 by 25 to get 75. 3 times 25 is 75. If you do that to the first term, you do it to the second term. Now, I've had lots of kids today tell me to do 100 times 25, but it's not 100 anymore. We simplified it to 10. It's 10 times 25, which is 250. Now, who can point out to me why the answer is not 250? A lot of kids, I'm going to write it in red just so you know I'm not right. A lot of kids write 250 as the answer. How come that's not the answer? Well, let's reread the question here and make sure we can figure out why. It says, if the deposit was $75, how much more does Mark owe? The question doesn't say how much is the total. If the question said what was the total cost of the rug, the answer would be $250. But it says how much more does he owe? Well, how can we figure that out? Well, we're going to take $250 and we're going to subtract the 75 that he already paid. Now, as long as we subtract carefully, we'll get the right answer. You can't do 0 minus 5, so we're going to borrow. 10 minus 5 is 5. 4 you're going to borrow again to make it 14. 14 minus 7 is 7, and 1 minus 0 is 0. The remainder, and that is not right, 1 minus 0 is 1. The remaining amount that he owes is $175. It says explain how you found your answer. I showed on my work. I'd probably say maybe I'd say this. The rug costs $250, but he only has to pay $175 more. That would be a good answer. All right, we are done. Good job.